It all started with the lavender. But to be precise, it began 30 years ago, when a single act of defiance planted the first seed of rebellion in the beige wasteland of Serenity Estates. My garden was not a mere hobby, it was a sanctuary, a living, breathing memorial. Every petal and leaf was a verse in an epic poem dedicated to my late wife, Mary. We'd bought the house in this ironically named subdivision, a sea of identical beige houses with chemically perfected lawns, as our final nest. It was Mary who had the vision. She stood on the barren patch of dirt that was our yard, looked past the soulless conformity, and saw a riot of color and life. "Arthur," she'd said, her eyes sparkling brighter than any delphinium, "we'll build a little piece of England right here." After she was gone, the garden became my sole purpose. It was my connection to her, my daily conversation. I nurtured the peace roses she'd planted after my most grueling investigation, the one that took down a corrupt city councilman. Their pale yellow blooms, a reminder of the quiet strength she offered me in those turbulent times. I tended to the delphiniums, their vibrant blue spikes a mirror of her eyes on our wedding day. And I cultivated the lavender, rose, and rose of it, because she loved how its scent clung to the air after a summer rain, a fragrance she called heaven's perfume. The garden was a chaotic, fragrant, and profoundly beautiful rebellion against the beige monotony of Serenity Estates. It was everything Mary was, vibrant, untamable, and full of life. And the Homeowners Association hated it. The HOA was ruled, not governed, by Mrs. Eleanor Vance. She was a woman who seemed to be made of the same beige stucco as the houses she lorded over. Her hair was a helmet of sprayed perfection, her smile a thin, bloodless line that never reached her eyes. She walked the neighborhood with a clipboard and a measuring tape, a self-appointed guardian of aesthetic purity. I once saw her measure the distance between a neighbor's trash cans. To Eleanor, my garden was not a sanctuary. It was a violation, a weed in her perfectly manicured world. The letters started subtly, tucked into my mailbox like passive-aggressive whispers. Gentle reminders about Bylaw 7, Section C, Paragraph 4. All flora must be of a pre-approved native variety and shall not exceed a height of 36 inches. My English roses were, apparently, illegal aliens. My towering delphiniums were vertical aggressors. I ignored them. I was a retired man. My mortgage was paid off. The ink on my last byline had dried years ago. I figured I'd earned the right to grow whatever flowers I damn well pleased. That was my mistake. I underestimated the depths of Eleanor Vance's petty tyranny. The certified letter arrived on a Tuesday, its green slip a harbinger of war. It was typed in a severe, unforgiving font. It cited half a dozen bylaws I had supposedly violated, from unapproved color palettes, too much blue apparently, to attracting non-native pollinators, a crime for which the bumblebees seemed blissfully unrepentant. The final paragraph was the declaration of war. Failure to bring the property into compliance within 14 days will result in the association taking corrective action, which includes the removal of all non-compliant flora at the homeowner's expense. The cost of this action will be levied as a lien against your property. They weren't just going to fine me. They were going to come onto my land, my sanctuary, and rip Mary's garden out by the roots. They were going to send a man with a cutter and a truck to haul away 30 years of love and memory and turn it into mulch. The image made me physically sick. That night, for the first time in years, I felt a familiar fire ignite in my belly, the one I thought had died out when I retired from investigative journalism. For 2 decades, I dug into the dark corners of City Hall, exposing corruption and holding power to account. I'd faced down crooked councilmen and mob-connected contractors. I was not about to be defeated by a suburban despot with a clipboard. Eleanor Vance wanted a war. She had no idea who she was fighting. My first move was to attend the next HOA board meeting. It was held in the community clubhouse, a sterile room that smelled of industrial cleaner and quiet desperation. I made a calm, heartfelt plea, explaining the garden's significance. I even brought photos of Mary standing proudly amidst the roses. Eleanor listened with the patient condescension of a queen hearing a peasant's petition. "Mr. Pendleton," she said, her voice smooth as polished stone, "while your sentiment is noted, the rules are the rules. They exist to protect property values for all residents. Your eclectic arrangement is simply not in keeping with the community's established aesthetic." The other board members, a collection of meek sycophants I privately called the Beige Brigade, nodded in unison. My appeal was denied. As I left the clubhouse, a wave of fury washed over me. Protecting property values. It was the eternal excuse for every act of petty control. And as I walked past the community pool, a thought sparked. The pool, the crown jewel of Serenity Estates. It had been closed for 2 years. A large laminated sign was zip-tied to the chain-link fence. "Closed for repairs indefinitely. We apologize for the inconvenience." The inconvenience was a sore spot in the neighborhood. Summers were brutal. Kids were bored. HOA fees, however, had not decreased. People grumbled, but Eleanor had a well-rehearsed speech about unforeseen structural issues, supply chain delays, and the difficulty of finding a qualified contractor for such a major and complex renovation. I stood there, looking at the placid, green-tinged water through the fence. 2 years was a long time for a pool repair. A very long time. My journalistic instincts, long dormant, began to twitch. I went home and opened my laptop. It was time to do what I did best: dig. The HOA's budget was, by law, available to all homeowners. I downloaded the PDFs for the last 3 years. I spent hours poring over line items, fueled by black coffee and a growing sense of righteous anger. And then I found it. A recurring monthly expense, listed under Facilities Maintenance. A payment of $4,500 to a company called Aquatic Solutions, LLC, every month, for 3 years. That was $54,000 a year. A total of $162,000 paid to a company for maintaining a pool that had been closed for 2 of those years. Something was very, very wrong. I did a business search for Aquatic Solutions, LLC. It was a registered corporation, but the address listed was just a P.O. box in a neighboring town. There was no website, no phone number, no digital footprint whatsoever. The registered agent, the legal contact for the company, was a man named Martin Vance. Vance. A quick public records search confirmed my suspicion. Martin Vance was Eleanor's brother-in-law, a man who, according to a small article I found in a local paper's archive, had declared bankruptcy 5 years ago after his pool cleaning business went under. My heart hammered against my ribs. This wasn't just about petty tyranny anymore. This was fraud. Embezzlement on a suburban scale. Eleanor Vance wasn't just a control freak, she was a thief. She was using the closed pool as a cover to funnel HOA funds to her own family. But I needed more than just a suspicious connection. I needed irrefutable proof. I needed to know why the pool was shut down in the first place. My old contacts at the city were long retired, but I still knew how the system worked. I filed a Freedom of Information Act request with the County Health Department for all inspection reports related to the Serenity Estates community pool for the past 5 years. The clerk on the phone sounded bored. "It can take up to 10 business days, sir." 10 days. My deadline was in 9. While I waited, the HOA escalated. One morning, I woke up to find a patch of my lawn, right at the edge of the garden, burned yellow. A chemical burn. It was a warning shot. A clear message. "We're coming for your garden. The next day, I found one of Mary's rose bushes snapped at the base. It was the peace rose. The act was so personal, so cruel, it stole the air from my lungs. The fear was real, a cold knot in my stomach. But it was overshadowed by my rage. They had made it personal. Now, so would I. The email from the health department arrived on the 8th day. It contained a single PDF file. I opened it, my hands trembling slightly. The report from 2 years ago was stark. The pool had been shut down for a non-critical violation, a faulty pH sensor and a small, hairline crack in the plaster. The estimated cost of repair, according to the inspector's notes, less than $2,000. It was the smoking gun. Eleanor hadn't closed the pool for a major and complex renovation. She'd closed it for a minor, cheap repair, and then kept it closed, inventing a phantom contractor and a phantom problem so she could bleed the community dry, month after month, to the tune of $4,500. I now had the what, the how, and the who. All I needed was the perfect moment to deploy it, and I knew just the place. The next HOA meeting was scheduled for the day my 14-day compliance period expired. The agenda included a final vote on the corrective action for my property. Eleanor would be expecting me to make one last, pathetic plea for my flowers. She'd be expecting a gardener. She was about to meet a journalist. I arrived early and set up a small projector I'd brought from home. Eleanor watched me with a smug, triumphant smirk. "A presentation, Mr. Pendleton? I do hope it's brief. We have important business to attend to." "I promise it will be very informative," I said, my voice steady. When my agenda item came up, I didn't talk about my garden. I didn't mention Mary. I walked to the front of the room and turned on the projector. The first slide was a picture of the community pool, with the closed indefinitely sign in the foreground. "We've all been wondering about the pool," I began, my voice echoing slightly in the quiet room. "Mrs. Vance has told us about the complex repairs and the difficulty in finding contractors. I was curious, so I did a little research." I clicked to the next slide. It was a screenshot of the HOA budget, with the $4,500 monthly payment to Aquatic Solutions, LLC, highlighted in red. "For the past 3 years, we have paid this company, Aquatic Solutions, a total of $162,000 for pool maintenance." A murmur went through the room. I saw Eleanor's smile falter. "Strange, isn't it?" I continued. "To pay so much to maintain a facility that has been closed for 2 years. I wondered who this company was. I couldn't find a website or a phone number, but I did find its registered agent." Next slide. A screenshot of the business filing, showing the name Martin Vance. "His name is Martin Vance. Does that name sound familiar to anyone?" I paused, letting the question hang in the air. I saw the color drain from Eleanor's face. Her knuckles were white where she gripped her pen. "He is our board president's brother-in-law," I said, my voice ringing with clarity. The room erupted. People started talking at once, angry, confused voices overlapping. Eleanor banged her gavel on the table. "This is slander, an outrageous accusation. This man is a disgruntled homeowner creating baseless lies." "Is it?" I asked calmly. "I thought you might say that, which is why I filed a request with the county health department for the original inspection report that led to the pool's closure." Final slide. A high-resolution scan of the health inspector's report. I used the projector's remote to zoom in on the violation. Faulty pH sensor. And the estimated cost of repair, $1,850. "The pool wasn't closed for a major renovation, neighbors," I said, turning to face the room. My voice was no longer that of a quiet old man. It was the voice of a journalist who had a corrupt official cornered. It was closed for a minor repair. It was kept closed so our HOA fees, our money, could be funneled into a shell company owned by our president's family. The chaos was absolute. People were on their feet, shouting at the board. Eleanor Vance sat frozen, her mask of composure shattered, revealing the panicked thief beneath. I had done more than just expose her. I had armed her victims with the truth. They didn't need me to fight for them anymore. They were doing it themselves. The aftermath was swift. An emergency meeting was called. The entire board was forced to resign in disgrace. A full audit was launched, and the district attorney's office opened a criminal investigation into Eleanor and Martin Vance. And my garden? It was safe. The new interim board immediately rescinded all violation notices against my property. In fact, my garden became something of a neighborhood symbol, a testament to the fact that one person, armed with the truth, could stand up to tyranny. A week later, a young couple from down the street came by with a small pot of bluebells. "We thought these might fit in," the woman said, smiling. "Thank you." A few days later, a new sign appeared on the pool fence. It was handwritten on a piece of cardboard. "Under new management. Reopening soon. Your HOA fees at work. For real this time." I stood in my garden that evening, the scent of lavender filling the air. I hadn't just saved Mary's roses. I had rooted out a corruption that was poisoning the entire community. They had threatened to destroy my little patch of beauty and life. In return, I gave them their community back. And for the first time in a long time, Serenity Estates felt a little more like home. But the story, I would soon learn, wasn't over. A weed, once rooted, often has deeper, more tangled connections underground. My newfound status as a local hero was awkward. I was a man who preferred the quiet company of flowers to people. Now, my doorbell rang constantly. Neighbors brought apple pies and casseroles. The new interim HOA president, a well-meaning but flustered man named David Chen, called me twice a day for advice on everything from landscape contractors to drafting new bylaws. I had saved my garden, but in doing so, I had inadvertently become the reluctant mayor of Serenity Estates. Meanwhile, whispers began to circulate. Eleanor Vance, out on bail, had hired a notoriously aggressive lawyer. Her few remaining loyalists in the neighborhood started a new narrative. Eleanor was the victim, framed by a vindictive old man with a personal grudge. A for sale sign appeared in front of her beige house. It was clear she planned to take the money and run before the slow-moving wheels of justice could catch her. The first real sign of trouble came one night. I was woken by the sound of gushing water. Someone had broken the control panel for my sprinkler system, turning my garden into a flooded bog. It was designed to look like a malfunction, but I knew it was a message. The next morning, I found a dead sparrow laid carefully on my welcome mat. It wasn't just a threat, it was a statement of contempt. Eleanor was mocking me, telling me that even in defeat, she could still touch what I loved. That was her final mistake. The journalist in me, the one who had taken down powerful men, reawakened with a vengeance. Letting her simply sell her house and disappear was not justice. It was an escape. I went back to the HOA's financial records. Where had the $162,000 actually gone? Martin Vance's bank statements, obtained by the DA's office and leaked to me by a sympathetic clerk, showed the money coming in from the HOA and flowing right back out, into a series of transactions that were designed to be confusing. But I had spent my life untangling tangled threads. After 3 sleepless nights, I found the endpoint. A final transfer to a real estate development company named Pristine Holdings, LLC. A new round of digging began. Pristine Holdings was a ghost, much like Aquatic Solutions, but on a much larger scale. They were buying up huge tracts of land on the edge of the county, planning a new, ultra-exclusive gated community. And when I finally broke through the shell corporations and found the name of the majority partner, a cold dread washed over me. It was Councilman Robert Thorne, a man I had investigated 15 years ago for bribery and corruption. A man who had sidestepped indictment with the help of powerful friends. His career tarnished, but intact. My reporting had wounded him, but it hadn't stopped him. The puzzle pieces clicked into place with horrifying clarity. The Serenity Estates HOA wasn't the main event. It was an audition. Eleanor Vance wasn't just stealing from her neighbors to help her bankrupt brother-in-law. She was laundering money for a powerful and very dangerous public official. She was proving she could manage a small-scale fraud before being trusted with the multi-million-dollar Pristine Holdings project. This was bigger than a broken pool. It was bigger than my garden. This was about the systemic corruption I had fought my entire life. I knew what I had to do. This wasn't a matter for the new HOA board or even the local police who Thorne had in his pocket. I called Sarah Jenkins, the sharp young woman who had taken my old desk at the city's top newspaper. "Sarah, it's Arthur Pendleton," I said. "I've got a story for you, and it's a big one." I spent the next 2 days compiling every piece of evidence: the bank transfers, the business filings, the public records, the connection between Thorne and Eleanor. I laid it all out in a clear, undeniable timeline. I gave it all to Sarah. Then I sent a second, anonymous copy of the entire package to the FBI's Public Corruption Unit. The story broke the following Sunday. It was the front-page headline, above the fold: "Suburban HOA Dispute Uncovers City Hall Corruption Ring." The explosion was immediate. The FBI, armed with my roadmap, raided Thorne's office at City Hall and the temporary headquarters of Pristine Holdings. The "For Sale" sign in front of Eleanor Vance's house was replaced with yellow crime scene tape. Her escape route was cut off. She and Thorne were arrested on federal charges. The pool at Serenity Estates finally reopened on a sweltering Saturday in August. The entire neighborhood was there. The water was a brilliant, clear blue. The new HOA board held a small ceremony, officially dedicating my garden as the Mary Pendleton Memorial Garden. I stood in the back, watching the scene. Kids were doing cannonballs into the water, their joyous shouts echoing through the air. Neighbors who had once only given curt nods were now laughing together, sharing plates of barbecue. A little girl with pigtails, the daughter of the couple who had brought me the bluebells, ran up to me. She held out a slightly misshapen, lavender-frosted cupcake. "Thank you for getting our pool back, Mr. P," she said, with a gap-toothed grin. I took the cupcake, my old, calloused hand, gently taking it from hers. I looked from her smiling face to the thriving, vibrant garden, and then to the sparkling blue water of the pool. I had started this fight to protect a memory, but in doing so, I had helped an entire community create a new one. And in that moment, I felt a sense of peace that was deeper and more profound than any I had ever known. The beige was gone. In its place was life, in all its chaotic, colorful, and beautiful glory. Mary would have loved it.